Hey everyone, Jeff with the Death Star Human Resources Department podcast. Welcome back. I am today joined by Travis Clark, writer on Substack of The Traverse, an entertainment newsletter. And we are going to be talking about kind of the business side of Star Wars. I titled it Republic Credits. So,
Hmm.
Travis, thanks for coming on today.
What's up? Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we can establish a little bit of credentials. You were a entertainment reporter at Business Insider, correct?
Yes, yeah. So, I have a little bit of credibility.
All
Just
right.
a tad.
All right. I mean, my credibility is limited to trying to advocate for Darth Jar Jar, so I'm
That's
here
all
to
you
learn
need.
today.
Yeah.
All
Keep
right.
up the fight.
All right. And before we get started, where can people find your work on Substack?
Yeah, so like you said, it's called The Traverse. It's at travisclark.substack.com.
All right, cool. Everybody go check it out. Travis is a really interesting writer. He doesn't just cover Star Wars, he kind of covers all kind of aspects of the entertainment industry. So I want to start. So I think I first saw your work on Substack. You had an article a little over a year ago. I'm sorry, I have it
Hmm.
here. I got to find it. Just titled "Star Wars is Broken."
Yeah.
And I will be honest, I saw that and I was like, when I see those kind of titles, I always get a little worried that it's like, oh boy, this guy's mad because there were girls in Star Wars, or
Right. Yeah.
Ryan Johnson ruined my childhood because of The Last Jedi, or something like that.
Right.
And so I clicked on it, like a little bit of trepidation, but I clicked on it, and it's not that at all. Like I'll be clear about that, and we'll put a link either up or in the show notes, one of the two, so you can go check it out.
Yeah,
But
thanks. I'm not a toxic fan.
no, yeah, no, I realized that as I read a little more of yours, and I was like, okay, good. Like this guy is coming at this, I think, from a place of wanting Star Wars to be better,
Hmm.
not Luke threw his lightsaber in the ocean and I'm mad about it.
Right. Yeah.
So could you kind of talk about, and I guess two questions, kind of what was kind of the gist of that article for people who haven't read it,
Hmm.
and do you still think the same? Like, is there a aspect of Star Wars that is still broken?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the article kind of um came about because I wrote it right after it was announced that Ryan Gosling was going to star in the Sean Levy Starfighter movie.
Mm-hmm.
And around that same time, they announced that, or it was reported that a new writer was coming on the Rey movie,
Mm-hmm.
like New Jedi Order, I think is like the tentative name. So it's just I wrote this in the piece, like I saw those two headlines and I just kind of rolled my eyes because they were very like indicative of uh, what Star Wars has kind of been going through over the last decade. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
you have this Starfighter movie that's coming out next year that could be good. I haven't really heard anything about it, but I guess early buzz is that it's fun, kind of
Mm-hmm.
back to basic Star Wars, which would be cool. Um, but it also feels like something that Disney or Lucasfilm, whoever, felt like they needed to like rush this out.
Mm-hmm.
They got Sean Levy, who is like a steady hand. He did Deadpool and Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of a guy that you like plug in when you like just need someone to like get something done.
Mm-hmm.
So and then on the flip side, it was like, oh, another like I don't know how many writers have gone through this like Ray movie.
Mm-hmm.
That they announced. I don't even remember how long ago at this point, but they
Yeah,
announced it.
I couldn't tell you, but it's definitely been a while.
Yeah, they announced it with like two other movies, and they kind of positioned it as like this trilogy across the timelines,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is cool in practice, but I don't actually think any of those movies will actually get made, unfortunately. So yeah, except for the Mando one, I guess.
Right. That's obviously,
Which is which is current timeline or whatever you want to call it. So that was kind of the inciting, thought for that piece. Um, the second part of that question was, do I still think it's broken? Um, Maybe not. I feel like I'm kind of looking at it as this is like a fresh starting
Mm-hmm.
point, maybe, hopefully. And we'll talk about, the ups and downs of the
Yeah.
Kennedy era. But aside, she's gone now, ups and downs.
Hmm.
But aside from that, this is like a fresh start. So is it broken? Maybe we'll see. We'll see in like a month when Mando
Right,
comes
right.
out.
Yeah, it seems like, and the Rey movie especially, because this, they really positioned Rey as kind of like she was the next Luke, the next Luke. She was going to be the
Yeah.
face of the franchise.
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, and that you've gone this long, the Rise of Sky. We're recording this middle of April. The Rise of Skywalker was December of 2019. Like we're going
Yeah.
on quite a while.
Hmm.
And I guess I'm a little surprised that there just hasn't been anyone at Disney or Lucasfilm to just say, look, like get this done, like get this out.
Hmm.
We need something for this. If we're going to continue Skywalkers, like nobody just said, look, whatever script we have, we're going with it. Get
Hmm.
Daisy Ridley. Um,
Yeah.
and it feels like that's kind of been the legacy, maybe not the legacy, just kind of Disney's MO since 2020, basically, since Disney Plus is we're going to do this, well, we're changing our mind, or we're going to
Hmm.
do this, but we're on our third writer. And it just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of feel like
They-
you need Uncle George back to kind of be the firm hand.
or just a firm hand in
Yeah.
general. Yeah, and maybe Filoni and Brennan can be those people. But yeah, to that point, like they, the legacy of the Disney era is more about things that weren't made than things that were made. Almost, they've announced Ryan Johnson trilogy, Taika Waititi film, the Benioff and Weiss Game of Thrones
Hmm.
creators. I think they were on board for a trilogy. Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron, which seems like that is just now Starfighter.
There,
Maybe.
there was something, I don't know, maybe it was end of last year, or early this year, I can't remember, but something, one of those internet rumors that, oh, they're going to bring Rogue Squadron back, but as a TV
Hmm.
show. And I was like, that would be a mistake. Not that I don't want to see Rogue Squadron, but if you're going to have a, X-Wing based show, it needs to be on the big screen. Like that's what
Oh
Star
yeah.
Wars is made for.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. And there have been, Mandalorian, the show is like very cinematic for a TV
Hmm.
show. So I think it makes sense that they're turning it into a movie. I felt that way about Obi-Wan. Like I feel like that could have been a movie. I wasn't really a fan of the show. If it was a movie, like who knows, maybe it could have been like a little tighter, a little more focused. And like the prequels are so popular now. They've been like recaptured by the fandom. So
I,
it was a little weird that they opted to throw that on Disney Plus as a TV show. And yeah, to your point, it kind of starts in 2020 when there was this mandate to, throw everything at
mhm.
streaming, you know, come up with so many ideas. And I think they got a little ahead of themselves. They announced so many things that have just never come to fruition and probably won't at this point with changing of the guard.
Right. So one thing about Obi-Wan is, and I have no idea if this is true or not. I read it somewhere on Reddit or
Mhm.
God only knows where, but it was basically like Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan were going to be movies. And
Mhm.
then when Solo did not do well, or at least did not do well by their expectations, they got shelved. And then, they went to Disney Plus, which to me,
Yeah.
it makes sense in the sense that like both Obi-Wan and Boba Fett could have been about 2 episodes shorter each one, which would have put them around the runtime of a movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's definitely stuff you could cut, like especially with Boba Fett turning into Mando season 2.5.
Yes.
It was a fun episode. It was just it was a little weird.
Yeah. And yeah, I think there is probably some truth to that because now I remember that, there were reports that James Mangold was going to make the Boba Fett movie.
Hmm.
Now he's supposedly making the
Dawn of the Jedi.
old Republic
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Maybe.
maybe.
we'll,
Right, right.
we'll see.
Y-
Yeah.
y- It's interesting. One last thing on kind of the start and stop
Hmm.
is I think it was like 2021, 2022, when they had this huge, Disney, what is it, the D23, the Investor Day. They had
Hmm.
this huge announcement. We've got like 10 series. It was like Ahsoka, Andor, Rogue Squadron, Rangers of the New Republic. I can't name them all. But,
Hmm.
and if you actually look at it, they got most of them over the finish line.
That's
Um,
true. Yeah.
Rangers of the New Republic, that probably would have happened, but for Gino Carano,
Mm.
and being a shit poster.
Oh, was
Um,
that supposed to be like a spin-off focused
I
on
think so. I don't think it
Hermit?
was ever confirmed, but that was kind of what it was figured. That was going to be her
Yeah.
show, and they could tie it into the to the Mando verse. The
Yeah.
only, Rogue Squadron's kind of out there. The only one that never got any traction, there was something called Droids, and I think it was supposed to be a cartoon. And that
Yeah.
one, like, they announced it and never heard anything. But overall, I think in the streaming shows, they've actually had a pretty good track record of getting stuff to the screen. You can debate how good it was, but they
Yeah,
at least got it done.
that's
But
true.
the movies, it almost felt like any screenwriter who, ran into Dave or ran into Kathleen Kennedy at a party and just said, "Hey, I've got a Star Wars idea." They were like, "All right, go write it. We'll do it."
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
just kind of, it never, I'll believe the Taika Waititi movie happens when I actually am in the
Oh,
theater
yeah.
watching it,
It seems like he's moved on to other things.
which I would like that to happen. I'm a big fan of his. Like, I love, what we do in the shadows, but
Yeah.
I'm not thinking that's ever going to happen.
Yeah. But to
All
your
right.
point, it does seem like, so many creators have just, kind of pitched their idea to play in the
Mm-hmm.
sandbox. The scrapped Hunt for Ben Solo movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not scrapped. It was never, greenlit, but
Yeah.
Steven Soderbergh had this idea that was reportedly, shot down. So yeah, it's a lot of what could have been, at least
Yeah.
on the movie side.
All right. Well, I do want to talk. So, like I said, we're recording this in April. In January, Kathleen Kennedy stepped down. January or
Hmm.
February. Stepped down as president of Lucasfilm. This has been, had been reported on for over a year, I think.
Hmm.
And so she came over. Basically, she's been with Lucasfilm forever, prior to Disney. But she basically came over when George Lucas sold Star Wars, and she
Hmm.
was the president of Lucasfilm. She was essentially in charge of Star Wars. She was the Emperor Palpatine of Lucasfilm. So it maybe, maybe we need to have this conversation another year or 2 or 5 years to kind of really evaluate. But
Hmm.
looking at it kind of shortly thereafter of her stepping down, what do you think kind of her legacy is going to be in the Star
Yeah.
Wars universe?
Yeah, I mean, we touched on it a little bit, just, a lot of starts and stops,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what could have been. Um, Overall, like, eh, Disney wanted Star Wars to make a new trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
that seemed like the main goal up front.
Mm-hmm.
And they did that, and people will people will disagree on how well they pulled it off, but they did it. And even though each movie made less money than the last, they were still huge hits,
Mm-hmm.
reinvigorated the franchise, in a sense, for a new era, which I think was the goal. We've had, it's been highs and lows. Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, your mileage will vary on whether you like Rise of Skywalker or Last Jedi. That they seem to be in their own camps. Um, Andor, I think, is phenomenal. Even if people don't like that show for whatever reason, like, it's undeniable that brought us like a certain prestige to
Mm-hmm.
the to to the franchise in a way that it didn't have before. Um, I think Mandalorian seasons 1 and 2 are great,
Mm-hmm.
and that may have done just as much, if not more, to like reinvigorate the franchise than the sequel trilogy in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you have the bad, all the stops and starts, a botched trilogy overall. Like, even if you like those movies or like one or two of those movies or whatever, it's undeniable that it's very clear that there was no plan across those movies. Um, yeah, and I think it's interesting. You said that they 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 stuck to their guns on the TV side for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. Um, I think part of the issue is how successful those shows were. Um, you know, all of them have their fans to a certain degree. I think some are more successful than others.
Mm-hmm.
And from, you know, a metric standpoint, like the, a lot of those aren't as popular as you would think a Star Wars show would be. Like something with Star Wars in the
Right.
title. In this day and age, and like, they canceled The Acolyte after one season. Um, you know, I've I- I've dug through the numbers for my
Yeah. Yeah.
Substack quite a bit, and you can see that show just did not gain steam, and it's not surprising that they canceled it, whether you think it was a good show or not. It just didn't really take off in the way you would think.
One thing I've thought about The Acolyte is I went back and rewatched it
Mm,
within the last year or so, and it really works better if you're able to binge it. Like
mm,
it flows better. I think the week to week. I get why Disney does that. I get why they don't do the Netflix model of dumping it.
yeah,
But for something like that, it really did flow better. And I think
interesting.
how much of the issue with The Acolyte do you think is it was brand new characters? I'm not essentially brand new characters, and
Mhm.
I think there were a couple that were from the High Republic books. But again, you're only reading those if you're in the weeds.
Yeah.
So how much do you think it was that? How much do you think was there was a certain section of the fan base that was already primed to hate the Acolyte um,
Mhm.
before the first episode ever aired, and it kind of felt like to me like it was in a no-win situation.
Yeah, I think that's true. From a personal standpoint, I did not like that show. I don't even think I finished it, to be completely honest. And it wasn't because of any uh y- culture war
Right, right, right.
bullshit. It was just I just don't think it was very well told. Uh, maybe if I went back and binged it, like you said, I would like it more. Um, that also made me think maybe it should have just been a movie.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of
uh,
the it's kind of the equivalent of this meeting could have been an email.
yeah, 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 yeah. But you know, I think you're right that it was kind of no-win situation, because I feel like a lot of the fan base have have this idea of what Star Wars is in their
Hmm.
heads, and that show was not it. you know, um, like you said, new characters, timeline that isn't really that people aren't really familiar with,
Hmm.
um, and all the, like, culture war bullshit around it,
Hmm.
just from the toxic side of the fan base, weighed it down in a way that I feel like just it was like a dark cloud over the whole thing.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and that has I think that has affected the franchise in general, even the movies.
I know, I definitely agree, and I think you know the problem for Kathleen Kennedy is kind of the buck stops with her, regardless of whether it's her fault or not.
Hmm.
It's you're not the face of Star Wars, obviously, but if you are the president of Lucasfilm, like you are going to get the blame, good or bad. And I kind of feel like with her, at least for again a section of the fan base, it was everything that went wrong was her fault. Anything that went well was Dave Filoni or Tony
Hmm.
Gilroy or whatever. And I know Tony Gilroy, showrunner on Andor, even said, this show wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Kathleen Kennedy. And
Hmm.
I just think, you can't like Andor and blame Kennedy for all the ills of Star Wars in the same sentence.
Right.
Like the two are not compatible. And
Hmm.
but I think you're right that it's definitely a mixed bag for her. And, some of it's probably her fault. Some of it is probably not her fault. Some of it is, the structure that Star Wars is operating in has completely changed when it went from, Lucasfilm to Disney.
Hmm.
Lucasfilm pre Disney, obviously, it was just, does George want to do this or not? Do we have the money to do this? Will George sign off on it?
Hmm.
And now you've got, I don't know. It feels like for a lot of Star Wars, there's too many cooks in the kitchen these days, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
just the nature of being part of a gigantic corporation like Disney.
Oh yeah. 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 Well, it's not just one guy
Yeah,
who is doing this. It's an entire corporation is like, betting on it,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. I
with
mean,
mark, with merchandise, so it's just like, so yes, there's so many cooks in the kitchen
yeah, and I
these days.
mean, and ultimately, you have, you've got to keep the stock, you got to keep the stock price going, you got to keep the stock price up, and I'm fairly certain, 99% certain, Lucasfilm was a private company. So again, it was, does George want to do this? Are we going to make money on it? And,
Hmm.
that's it. All right.
Yeah.
So Kennedy is out and replaced. I shouldn't say replaced. That sounds a little. She has stepped down and promoted
Handed
and
the reins.
promoted. Yes. You got Dave Filoni and Lynwen. I think I'm saying her name right.
Lynwen Brennan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who I have to assume she's British just based on that. um, and kind of my understanding, kind of reading the tea leaves, is Filoni is going, and they are co-presidents, and so
Hmm.
Filoni is supposedly, it seems like, handle more of the creative side of things, and Brennan will handle more of the business side of things.
Yeah.
So, start with, do you think Disney made, and it's obviously too early to say, do you think Disney made
Mhm.
the correct choice with Dave Filoni, or do you think they should have like kind of gone outside?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's too early, but just like, it's it seems like the obvious choice,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, I don't know much about Brennan, but like you said, seems like she'll be more on the business side of things. Filoni will take charge of creative. I think that's good though. I think it's good that he might have someone in his ear to maybe kind of rein in his impulses.
Hmm.
As someone, I obviously consider myself a big Star Wars fan,
Hmm.
but I would not consider myself a diehard fan to the point where I'm consuming the shows, the books, all that stuff.
Hmm.
So, and I feel like, Filoni, obviously the animated universe is his
Yes.
baby. Ahsoka is his baby. Um, so I think that stuff is great in their own little corner of the universe. I don't think they should be everything.
Hmm.
And I don't know what his plans are. Nobody really does, but him and maybe the new
Right.
Disney CEO, maybe. But yeah, I just in general, I think it was an obvious pick. Um, and I hope the co
Hmm.
leadership can kind of you know lead it in a good direction that, like I said, will rein in maybe some of his impulses.
Right. I feel like putting Dave Filoni in charge, it would be like putting me in charge. Like, if you want to come up to me with any Star Wars movie or any Star Wars idea that you've got, to be like, done. Send me a script. We'll do it.
Right.
And I think that's a. I think you're obviously right. It is definitely the obvious pick. It's a safe pick. Dave Filoni is he was with Lucasfilm prior to Disney as well.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of a continuation of George Lucas's legacy. I think my only concern is that if your goal with Disney is to expand the fan base, because it's a corporation. You always have to be growing.
Hmm.
I don't know. Dave Filoni seems like he caters to people like me, and maybe not necessarily is the best choice to like bring in new fans. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know. I'm just kind
Yeah.
of thinking out
No,
loud.
I think that could be right. But as someone who loves the franchise so much as he does,
Hmm.
hopefully he is also thinking about how to reel in new fans, because that's the only way you keep it going for, Star Wars is going on 50 years.
Hmm.
For it to go on another 50 years, you need to expand it a little more. I actually wrote about that a little bit in a recent piece, when Kennedy was stepping down, just about
Hmm.
like, this fresh start. And I wrote about how I feel like maybe the the way to kind of keep this franchise going into the long term
Hmm.
would be to just set a new story so far into the timeline, into the future, that it's pretty much maybe creating a new canon, like
Hmm.
new characters, um, you know, references the past, but also kind of references like events we haven't seen yet, kind of
Hmm.
like what the original Star Wars movie did. Like, it references the Clone Wars.
Right.
Nobody knew what
Right.
the Clone Wars was at that time. I think Star Wars could do that again. And like, we were talking about the Acolyte, and maybe that had a lot against it because it was so new.
Hmm.
Um, but on the movie side, I feel like, you know, that is a way to make something like large scale, cinematic,
Hmm.
that also doesn't have so much baggage on it, and can just like get new people to the theater, um, in a way that Star Wars hasn't really done in a long time.
I always
Um,
I always kind of feel like this kind of like Star Wars fans want to have it both ways. Who say, "Oh, we want new stories, we want fresh stories. We want to know what's going else and what's going on else in the galaxy. We don't want to necessarily be tied to the Skywalkers."
mm,
And then it's okay. No, we want Jedi. We want the Skywalkers, and
yeah.
it kind of puts it almost puts like kind of Lucasfilm in a no-win position. I always reference The Simpsons because I'm a huge Simpsons fan, and there's an Itchy and Scratchy one where they're doing like market research, and the Itchy and Scratchy guys like, okay, do you want Itchy and Scratchy to tackle real world problems, and the kids all cheer, or do you want them to have like crazy made up adventures with robots and wizards, and the kids all cheer? And
Hmm.
it's kind of that.
Yeah. I think the franchise's success is like its biggest weakness in a way,
Mhm,
because, like I said before, like people have this idea of what Star Wars is,
mhm,
and I feel like it's so tethered to the original trilogy and the Skywalker characters.
mhm.
It's very hard to move on from that.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. So kind of the next one we're getting, the first movie that, or at least we're going to see with Dave Filoni in charge, is The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Hmm.
And I don't know how they figured this out, but I don't know if you've seen this. There's already kind of reports out there that Disney is concerned it's going to lose money on it.
Mm.
Um,
I didn't see that specific report. I have seen the box office tracking for it.
mhm,
You know, uh, Box Office Theory, which I follow and cite a lot in my Substack.
mhm,
They're projecting like 70 some million for the first
mhm.
weekend, um, which I was surprised by. I find that to be low for Star Wars. Um, I don't think it's going to lose money, and I would be shocked if Disney is already like afraid of that. Like it's not to get ahead of the
Right.
conversation, but this, from what I understand, the Mando movie is budgeted lower than past Star Wars movies. Like, you know, I would be shocked if it didn't get to like 500 million worldwide
Mhm.
at the box office. And based on its reported budget, that's like, what it would need to hit to be, I don't know, successful, whatever that
Right.
means.
I know that Hollywood math is a thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But its success also goes like so far beyond that, like,
Hmm.
merchandising. Like Grogu is like such a hot commodity with kids. Like, um, the parks, like,
Hmm.
it's this movie's success is not going to just be based on box office.
I mean,
Um,
I think there's a pretty good argument to be made that Disney, and I may have said this earlier, Disney wants Rey to be the face of the franchise, but it really is Grogu.
yeah, yeah. It's always the non-human characters,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I don't know if you saw this. I'm going to share this really quick. The Onion had a Star Wars article the other couple weeks ago. So
Oh, I did see that. That's so funny. Yeah, but it's true though.
yeah. I mean, like any good Onion article, there probably is some hint of truth in there. And
Yeah.
I feel like among Star Wars fans, I think everybody's probably switched to Grogu, or at least uses kind of Grogu and Baby Yoda interchangeably.
Hmm.
But for people who maybe they watched the first two seasons of The Mandalorian, and 4 years ago now, 5 years ago, and maybe they just see the Baby Yoda memes or whatever. Like, are they going? I think they'll put two and two together because you're going to see Grogu on the trailer or Grogu on the poster or whatever. But it
Yeah.
is. I do feel like the Onion is probably has onto something that if they just called it like Baby Yoda's Adventures, like people would
Yeah.
already be lining
Yeah.
up for it.
Yeah. This movie feels essentially like a kids movie
Hmm.
almost. Um, and by the time it comes out, it's going to be a month and a half or so after Mario.
Hmm.
So kids are going to be looking for, kids and parents are going to be looking for the next movie to like go out as a family together. It's going to have like 2 weeks in theaters to itself, basically, because the next big movie after that is Masters of the Universe.
Hmm.
Um, and who knows how that'll do? I don't know. I'm excited for it. I don't know the general appetite for a He-Man movie, but I hope it does well.
I will probably go see it. Like I'm in my mid 40s, so I was like a kid when He-Man was out.
Yeah,
Um, I kind of told my buddies, I was like, I bet this movie will be awful, but I'm still gonna go see it. Like it's still gonna
yeah,
probably be fun.
yeah. It looks cool to me,
Yeah.
but yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really. I would be shocked if the movie did not
Hmm.
perform well. I don't think it's hard to know if it'll crack $1 billion. That seems like, the line for a Star Wars movie.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's fair or not.
I
Um,
it it seems like almost in the I don't know post-COVID era, I almost feel like it feels tougher to compare pre 2020 box office
oh yeah.
to box office now, and I think we've all become accustomed to streaming, or people are just like movie tickets are I don't know $20 or whatever they are. I
Hmm.
really don't go to the movies that often.
Yeah.
um when people are looking to maybe save money and might say, I'll just wait for it to come to streaming.
Yeah. 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 And I've written in my newsletter that, like, it might be time to abandon the pre and post pandemic,
Hmm.
just like, you know, narrative. Like,
Hmm.
it's just what it is now.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
I don't think movie theaters are ever going to get back to what they were before the pandemic. This is just like the new normal, and there's
Hmm.
highs and lows, and you know hopefully Mando is a high, but we'll
Yes.
see.
All right. So, are there any kind of looking ahead to what Dave Filoni could do?
Hmm.
I think Marvel is kind of suffering to the same kind of problems that Star Wars is having. Are
Mm.
there any are there any franchises out there that you think Star Wars could kind of look at and be like, okay, they're doing it correctly. Like this is who we should model ourselves after.
Ooh, that's a great question.
I
Hmm.
mean, you kind of do have just Star Wars and Marvel are kind of the big ones.
Yeah, yeah. Let me think. Wow. That's a bit. That's a good question. Well, I feel like this isn't answering the question, but
Mhm.
it made me think of this. Like, I feel like um, Star Wars has gotten very it's moved closer to Star Trek just in
Mhm.
terms of the TV output.
Mhm.
Um, and it sounds like moving forward, they're going to reel back the TV output and focus more on movies. Um, I think that just in general would be like, a huge course correct for the
Mhm.
franchise. Um, but as far as like other franchises, I mean, I do think Marvel, what they did in the early stages is a, like a good reflection of, seemingly having a plan.
Mhm.
Um, like my idea earlier, like, you know, making a new trilogy that's like so far in the future that it just kind of establishes something
Mhm.
new. Um, I would hope that something like that would be like kind of mapped out in advance to an
Mhm.
extent. Um, Obviously, they should be bringing on like the best filmmakers they can, who are obviously going to inject it with their own ideas.
Mhm.
But having kind of a blueprint ahead of that, I think would be good. And Marvel did that so well um, in the early phases, and I think Star Wars could do that on the movie side too.
Yeah, I think, and I'll link it. You definitely wrote something. I have it printed. I don't remember which one it was about kind of the pivot to TV, and I think that's kind of been one of the issues. Is you went from movies to TV, now back to movies. It's like stream. I guess it was Disney decided streaming isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's
Mm,
not the money maker that maybe they were hoping it is. I don't know if Disney Plus is now considered making money or not. And I've always, just kind of as an aside, when you see the streaming numbers or whatever, to me it's always tough to kind of measure success because like I'm subscribing to Disney Plus either way, whether I'm watching The Acolyte or not. So
right.
it's like, how do you determine? I don't know if you're making money on The Acolyte, if you're making money on The Mandalorian.
Mm.
I mean, you can, I guess, measure new subscriptions. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, new subscribers. You know, all these streaming platforms are getting into ads now, so
hmm
you can like, build ads into the shows. I think Disney Plus is profitable now, but I think it's been more because of their back catalog, maybe
hmm
like they have like an original programming problem. I feel like.
it's also funny now since Disney Plus and Hulu have merged. When I log on to Disney Plus, you've got like Bluey and the classic Disney stuff right next to like Always Sunny in Philadelphia or
Yeah, yeah,
Alien or something like that. I was like, I
yeah.
would I would probably keep the two kind of separate if it was me. Like if I had,
Yeah, they're really trying to make it like a general
yeah,
entertainment platform like
yeah,
Hulu.
yeah.
Um, yeah, when when the new Alien movie came out last year or a couple years ago, and when they were advertising the movie on
hmm
Disney Plus, and parents were blowing up about it. Because even if you had like the kid controls on, it
Yeah.
would just show like a less scary alien, which is still pretty scary to
Yeah.
kids.
All
Uh,
right. All right. Also, along with Dave Filoni, I don't know if how much you've been following kind of the Hunt for Ben Solo fiasco that's been going on.
mhm.
Um, for anyone who's not familiar with the Hunt for Ben Solo, the long story short of it is Adam Driver and Steven Soderbergh went to um, Lucasfilm, to Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and Carrie Beck, who I believe is a vice president, and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, we have a Ben Solo Kylo Ren script. It's already written. Adam Driver is ready to go. Steven Soderbergh will direct it." And supposedly the Lucasfilm people loved it. They sent it up to Bob Iger, who was the CEO of Disney at the time, and I believe the CFO. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I know I've written it down. Who said, "Isn't Ben Solo dead?"
Yeah.
And my comment, I've talked to a couple different people on here about it, is has Bob Iger ever actually watched Star Wars? Because we're currently watching the Darth Maul show, who, he
Yeah,
was cut in half with a lightsaber. And,
yeah,
I know he came back, prior to Disney, but come on, nobody's
yeah.
really ever dead in Star Wars.
No. Yeah, that was interesting. But that speaks to how, for all of people's issues with Kennedy,
Mm-hmm.
she did show a willingness at times to take chances.
Mm-hmm.
Like, based on the reports, it sounds like she loved that idea. And it's like the very top that struck it down. Um, so, I do hope that Filoni and Brennan are willing to take risks like that. I don't know if we necessarily need a Ben Solo movie. I think it would have been. I think it could have been dope with Steven Soderbergh like doing it. I don't know what the appetite for that is to even like continue the sequel trilogy characters. Like, they're not even, at Disneyland. I read that they are now pivoting back to the original
Mm-hmm.
trilogy characters.
So, yeah, they are. They are about to, end of April, Disneyland, excuse me, is going back to, it's more of like a generic Star Wars world.
Yeah.
And I was just at Disney World back in February, excuse me, and I think I actually thought Galaxy's Edge was a really cool idea, where you're like, because it really did feel like you're in a Star Wars set, like, you're in a dusty outpost in the Outer Rim,
Yeah.
and
It's amazing.
they really wanted you to feel that you are in a certain time and place in Star Wars,
Mhm.
and the interactivity with the cast members to varying degrees, like the lightsaber build, like they stayed in character the entire time, basically.
Mhm.
The droid build, not quite as much. The guy who was helping us went to the same college I did. I had a jacket on, so we talked about that, and he was definitely not in universe.
Yeah.
But I think, you had that, you had the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel,
Mhm.
and it really felt like, kind of at the beginning when Disney mapped this out, that you kind of had some of the creative people that were willing to say, we're going to take some risks, we're going to do we're going to do this. We're going to make a Star Wars hotel where you're basically LARPing for 3 days, and we're going to charge a lot of money for it. It didn't work,
Yeah.
but you had the people who were willing to do it, and now, like, I don't know, it feels like turning, having Darth Vader there, and turning it into a more generic Star Wars land is
Mhm.
the safe bet.
Yes,
You
yes,
know,
exactly. Yeah.
so
Yeah. And it speaks to what we were saying earlier, is that like the franchise is just so tethered to those
mm-hmm,
original characters now.
mm-hmm.
And they need to do something to break out of that.
Yeah, I mean, that is the problem. And even the original fans, if you saw A New Hope when you were 10 years old, you're only 60 years old. That's not that old.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so I don't know. It really, it feels like, and we've kind of said this a couple times, kind of a no-win situation for Disney. Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
can't move forward without making a certain segment mad at you,
Mhm.
but you
Yeah.
can't, connect to new fans and give them their own stories, and maybe we'll see in another, I don't know, in another 10 years, there'll kind of be a critical reevaluation of the sequel trilogy, kind of
Like
like the,
sequels.
yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
kind of joke people just memed the prequels into respectability, but
Yeah. But yeah, those people who grew up with those movies now like them, and they're passing them down to their
mhm,
kids, and so um but those were like conceived by like, one guy with a clear vision,
yeah,
which you can't really say for the sequel trilogy.
yeah. No, I mean, it, whatever you want to say about the prequels, and obviously, there are changes in plan. There were obviously changes in, plans between A New Hope and A New Hope, Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Like, you got a lot less Jar Jar in Attack of the Clones than in Revenge of the Sith, but there is an obvious through line from A to B that makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, the sequel trilogy, I just, it felt like after The Last Jedi, Disney just went back to J.J. Abrams and said, just make people like us again.
Yep.
Like that
Yep.
was the mandate there. And that
Yeah.
was another one, you had, a lot of different writers, like I know they cycled through a couple scripts, and
Yep.
it's
Colin
just,
Trevorrow was fired.
yes,
Yep.
you had everything that went on in Solo, and the year before with, I forget the guy's names who originally did it, who did 21 Jump Street, and then Ron Howard came in, and it
Mm.
just, like
Gordon Miller.
yes, yeah.
You now have a hit with Project Hail Mary.
Which I still need to go see. I just haven't been able to. I do want to go see that
It's
one.
great. Yeah.
My problem is, and you wrote about this recently, is the closest theater to me is Alamo, which I'm boycotting.
Oh. Glad we're on the same page.
Yeah.
It's so sad, but that's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another topic for another
go on
day.
and on.
Yeah. All right. So we kind of mentioned this, along with Kathleen Kennedy stepping down, Dave Filoni getting promoted. There's a new CEO at Disney as well, Josh D'Amaro. Josh, I think I'm saying his name right.
Yeah.
My understanding, at least, is it's another internal promotion. He was kind of a Disney Parks guy, is kind of what I've read.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything in his promotion, good or bad, for Star Wars? Or is he going to just kind of be like, Dave, this is your wheelhouse, you handle it?
Yeah, he, like you said, he's the parks guy. He was kind of the face of the parks. You stay in a Disney hotel, you turn on the TV, and he's like greeting you. So he's not, from what I understand, he's not really like a content guy, like a movie TV guy. I don't know what that means for Filoni and Star Wars in general. I think, at first, he might be hands off. It depends how, the next two movies go, I think. Which were obviously like, still part of the Kennedy era, like made during her time. But I think how those perform will influence a lot of decisions that could be made down the line. If Mando overperforms, then maybe we'll just get a bunch of Mandoverse movies. If Starfighter is really good, then maybe that will turn into its own trilogy. It's hard to say right now. But as far as D'Amaro goes, I like I said, he doesn't seem like a movie and TV guy, so I could see him maybe taking a step back. That said, he's very tech savvy. He's a digital guy, very consumer forward. He was apparently instrumental in getting Disney's Epic Games deal over the finish line. They're going to create a whole Disney universe in Fortnite, whatever that means.
I'm too old for that. I tried playing Fortnite a couple times, and I just got slaughtered by 12-year-olds.
Yeah, but I think even if he's not a movie and TV guy, Star Wars is still so essential to the company right now. I think he'll be interested in it in other aspects, like digital games, parks, and maybe in the beginning, like I said, Filoni and Brennan will have the movies and TV kind of in a silo.
I think that would probably, ultimately he is going to kind of be the final answer, I guess, if Filoni and Brennan say, hey, we've got this Hunt for Ben Solo movie, whatever somebody, the Taika Waititi movie is finally done, he's going to be the one eventually who's going to say, yes, we'll fund it, or no, we're not paying for that. I guess along those lines, I wrote this down at kind of just this morning. I was thinking about it. What did you think about the Disney backing out of kind of the OpenAI deal? I personally thought when I read that, I was like, Disney I know they have been trying to sue people for copyright infringement with AI, which is a copyright infringement machine. And at the same time say, okay, we're going to license our characters to OpenAI. People can use Sora or whatever it was called. And I couldn't believe that. like, have you not been online and, the AI movies people made of like SpongeBob doing 9/11 or whatever it was. Like,
Yeah.
how for a brand that is so protective
Mm-hmm.
of its IP, like the fact that they even considered it really was kind of
Yeah.
mind blowing to me.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, though, is that they are so protective, and it's they're suing these companies for copyright infringement, but making deals where they can.
Yeah,
It's all about like control, because this
yeah,
is all happening anyway.
yeah.
So if they can like control it in a sense, then they're going to do that. And like I said, Tomorrow is very tech savvy, very he's all about the consumer,
Hmm.
all about blending the IP with product and tech. It seems. I don't know him. So, yeah,
Josh, if you're watching, we'd love to
yeah,
have you on here.
yeah. Can't say for sure. But yeah, so I do think, even though they pulled out of that deal, which happened because Sora was such a flop that
Hmm.
OpenAI is shutting it down. I do think that Disney will still try to pursue deals like that, if only to have more kind of say in
Hmm.
how these companies are utilizing, um, their characters.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I think I kind of, looking at, we're about 50 minutes. I think I kind of covered everything. Actually, let me ask you one other thing. I want to get your
Yeah.
I wrote about this, I don't know, a couple months ago. It's something I've been kicking around in my head for a while. Do you think there could be a scenario where, let's say, Mando underperforms, um, Starfighter maybe doesn't do quite as well as they hope? Do you think there could be a scenario in a few years where Disney just says, "We're done with this. We're cutting our losses. We're going to just sell Star Wars"?
Oh, when you raised this with me earlier, I kind of thought about it from a different lens. Like,
Hmm.
what? Sorry if you're hearing those dings. Need to mute that. But yeah, when you proposed that question earlier, I kind of thought about it from a different lens.
Hmm.
Like, what if Disney never had Star Wars?
Okay.
Um, because I don't know if it. I don't think they would want to sell it. Um, it's fun to think about in that sense. So that's how I was trying to rationalize it.
Hmm.
I think uh, I think Paramount would be like, if Star Wars was just kind of with without any ownership. I feel
Hmm.
like Paramount would probably want to swoop in there, like they're doing on everything else.
Right.
Um, but they also have Star Trek, so like, you know, would it be complementary, or would it be, you know,
Hmm.
kind of meshing two fandoms that don't really belong under the same roof? um, but that popped into my mind. I think streamers would certainly want it, like Netflix, Amazon.
Hmm.
Netflix, when they were trying to buy Warner Brothers, I wrote about how a big part of that is probably because they need like big franchises that will sustain their movie business for like years,
Hmm.
decades to come. And as such a new business, new compared to the rest of Hollywood,
Right.
they don't have that. Um, and they have not really figured it out, how to build franchises. I think movie theaters are a big part of that, and they showed a willingness to expand more into theaters when they
Hmm.
were trying to buy WB. So you know, Star Wars would be another big jump into that. And Amazon, they're getting like very big into the theatrical space this year.
Hmm.
They really seem to be doubling down on, um, you, uh, content that is very catered towards dudes, which
Yeah, you've got
I
like
feel like
the.
Star Wars, in a sense, is.
Mhm.
Obviously, it has many, many, many female fans,
Yes.
but like most of these franchises, the general notion is that they
Mhm.
they cater more towards dudes, like you and me. So I feel like it could fit into Amazon's whatever they're trying to do now. But yeah, that's what came to mind. I don't know. Did you have any ideas?
I kind of feel like, to me, kind of, I think Amazon would actually be the most likely. I kind of kicked around. You've got Netflix, kind of the four legacy broadcasting companies, and they're all their subsidiaries.
Hmm.
Um, Apple, Amazon, and I said the nightmare scenario would be Google or Meta. Um, but to me, I think once we see what Amazon is going to do with James Bond, I think that would probably give us an idea as to what they would do, or what a similar company would kind of do with if they had Star Wars.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they do with Bond.
I mentioned this. I've always felt Bond was a little, I don't know, undersaturated. Maybe Star Wars is oversaturated,
Mm.
but I know, you have movies on a, I don't know, semi-regular basis, I guess.
Mhm.
And you kind of go in between periods when they're picking a new Bond. And I know, they've Ian Fleming's been dead for decades, but I know like new books come out, written by other authors, and you have video games. Like, I joke, I met most of my friends in college from GoldenEye 007 on the 64.
Oh, nice.
um, but it's always felt like it's never quite been in the zeitgeist like the Marvel has been for the last
Yeah.
10-15 years with
Yeah.
Star Wars. So I think, I'm assuming there's going to be a big push from Amazon. Like, you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
buy something like that to just make a movie every 3 years.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's the ultimate plan. They're going to focus on this first movie and hopefully make that as good as it can be, and then once they've convinced people that they are good stewards of
Hmm.
James Bond, then they'll uh, shove all the TV spin-offs down our throat.
I was going to say that's when we get the oversaturation.
Yes, yeah, and
Yeah.
I think the undersaturation is part of why Bond has worked so well over the years, because the movies seem like events.
Hmm.
That said, I'd probably watch a James Bond show.
Yeah, I would too. So I mean, like, I can act all high and mighty, but I'd probably watch
Yeah,
it. And
we're part of the problem.
yeah, no, absolutely. Disney knows, they slap Star Wars on it. I'm gonna watch it the first day. Like,
Yeah,
what am I gonna do?
yeah.
So one other thing I wanted to touch in. We're closing in on an hour. Um, do you think Star Wars would be better served with an call it an undersaturation? Like, it went from, I was in college when the prequels came out, and those were events, especially Episode 1. Like, it was,
Hmm.
if anybody watching this was not around for Episode 1, like, just the amount of commercials, merchandise, everything was Phantom Menace tied in.
Hmm.
And it's now, you've gone from things that are events, and The Force Awakens was an event as well.
Hmm.
And now it's like, Disney's dropping a new show. Okay, I guess I'll watch it if for
Hmm.
most people, not for me. I'm obviously watching Darth
Yeah,
Maul right away. But
the
for
general
most
public.
people, it's, oh yeah, maybe I'll watch it if I have a chance. And
Yeah. Hmm.
I have thought for a while that Disney and Star Wars would be better served, cut back on what you're doing,
Hmm.
maybe, you know, make the movies events, make them every few years.
Yeah.
You can build the hype. And if you want to do TV shows, obviously there's never going to be another Andor, but
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Like the movies should feel like events,
mhm,
like once every few years. Um, and then on the TV side, everything should just feel more focused. Like the
mhm,
movies should be, you know, have their characters and their storyline, and tell it, and and then the TV, I feel like, can dabble in other kind of corners,
Yeah.
if it wants to focus on Mandoverse, whatever. Um, so yeah, it's tough though, because I also think it's criminal that Disney let, like, how long has it been? 7 years, almost 7 years
Yeah.
since the Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
So, it's been too long, but you also don't want to oversaturate it. So it's
Yeah.
a fine line.
Yeah, I mean, you don't spend, what did they, I think $4 billion was the price tag that Disney spent,
Yeah.
14, 15 years ago. You don't spend that much money to just say, we'll do a movie when we get around to it. Like,
Yeah.
you've got to justify your returns to your investors and whatnot.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't have the solution for it. Hopefully,
someone does.
yeah, hopefully Dave and Lynwen have some ideas. Hopefully Josh
Yeah.
Tomorrow has some ideas. If they want to come
Yep.
on and tell us their ideas, we're open. DMs are open,
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah. Come on the podcast.
Yes.
Come
I will.
on our Substacks.
Yeah. All right. One other question I always like to ask people is kind of what's kind of your Star Wars origin story? Like, how did you get into it?
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of came to it late, honestly. I never saw any of the prequels in theaters. I think the first movie I saw was Revenge of the Sith on like DVD. Um, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, talk about machete order. And then I kind of like, it was kind of reverse engineered it, worked my way back. But yeah, that's kind of how I came to it. I think when Revenge of the Sith came out, I was 12. Um, so I was kind of in that age where I was becoming more interested in that stuff. Um, so, that being the movie that was coming out at that time, it was getting so much buzz. It was the end of the prequel trilogy. I just happened to, that was the first one I saw. But yeah, I mean, obviously, my fandom has grown since. You can see the
I was gonna say
the
I
Disney
definitely
World
like the hat.
exclusive hat. So, yeah, that's kind of, it's not an exciting origin story, but that's kind of, yeah, Revenge of the Sith on DVD, first one.
All right, no, that's cool. I mean, whatever gets you in, whatever hooks you.
Yeah,
All right, cool. Well, Travis, thank you so much for coming on. This was really interesting. I had
yeah, thank you.
a lot of fun. And tell people again where they can find your work.
Yeah, so my Substack is called The Traverse. It's at travisclark.substack.com. And if you want to follow me on Threads, I share a lot of my stuff there, at TravClark2, and that's the same handle for my letterbox too, in case you want to
All right,
follow me
cool.
there.
We'll have links to all that in the show notes below.
Cool.
As always, follow the Death Star Human Resources Department at www.deathstarhr.com. We'll be back eventually with another podcast. So, Travis, thanks again.
Thank you.
All right, and may the Force be with you.
And with you. See ya.